Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're going to talk about Reddit. Okay, there's this Reddit subreddit called liveaboard, and it's part of the sailing community. And there's also cruising sailboats, and there's a couple others. And some of these get some really interesting questions. The liveaboard one especially gets every couple of days, a couple times a week, there are some just insanely repetitive but kind of strangely formed questions, because the questions come from not knowing enough to know what questions to ask, kind of thing, or with people not thinking through what's going on with the idea of cruising or living aboard. Now, some people want to live aboard, houseboat on a dock, or motorboat or sailboat because it's cheap on a dock, and stay there and have their life, and it's their apartment on the water, and that's fine. And some people want to cruise, and some people want to adventure sail, like not cruising, but they want to slip in a marina, but they're going to go out every day. You're never going to go out every day, but that's what they think they're going to do. So this one's amusing because it's called short-term boat ownership. And the idea is that this guy wants to buy a boat now in December, flip it in April, mid-April, when he goes back to work, and buy a boat in Florida, sell a boat in Florida. And he's got some ideas about the broker just holding it for him until it sells. And I don't think he knows what marinas are like or slip prices are like in Florida or anything, but whatever. He's got $10,000 to spend until April on boat stuff. Flexible cash. I'm not sure what that actually means here. And he'd like to keep or recoup as much of it as he can by April. He's done Atlantic offshore sailing as crew. He's done a bunch of Great Lakes sailing on a 19-foot dinghy, sailing adventure dinghy, cruising dinghy. That's cool, good bonus. Like I'm like skill level wise, no problem. He's done maintenance. That's great. And he's got a trailer that he can stay at in a part of Florida. I'm not going to say where. So cool. And then he thinks he has a converted Prius for van life, and that makes me squint a little bit, because a Prius is quite the car to try to van life out of, but whatever, Obviously his needs aren't super great. This is a guy who could walk into a $1,000 Catalina 25 in North Carolina, South Carolina, motor his butt down the ICW, go through the OWW, cut through the channel in Florida, get onto the Gulf and sail around Naples, Sarasota, do whatever he wants to do, and have fun. But he's kind of his questions are really weird. He's got these options set up, and it's really weird. So the last thing he asks, not the first thing, the last thing he asks, which is the important part, the first thing to ask, is, does my experience qualify me for solo Gulf sailing? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Like, yeah, okay, you can sail on the Great Lakes in a 19-foot dinghy. You're going to be fine, okay? You're not sailing a 20-foot boat across the Atlantic and not being able to pick your weather window. You can go when you want to go and not go when you don't want to go, and you've been on big boats before. Grab something 25 to 30 feet long and go. Tomorrow. Go. I know where a couple are in North Carolina and South Carolina, or even Norfolk. Just go down the Elizabeth River and get on the ICW. There's a reason I'm not suggesting starting in Florida, but we'll get to that. So, okay, his last question, very last question at the end of his post, this is the important one. Does my experience qualify me for solo Gulf sailing? And the answer is yes. It's totally easy. Like, he'll be fine. And it's not the most important question for doing this adventure life at all, but it's if it's a question for you at all, if it's not something that you're comfortable with figuring out, then it needs to be your first question, not your last question. Okay, so he's got options. He's got $10,000 he can spend, but he doesn't want to spend it all. He's got a Prius, and he's got a place to park the Prius in Florida, and potentially a trailer, his grandparents' trailer, that he can stay in the whole winter. And I don't know why he's bothering with this Reddit post. He should just be driving to Florida and looking at boats to play with, right? So, in fact, I might actually add that to my comment on there. So, option 1, he's going to take a liveaboard sailing course for roughly $4,000. Ouch. Option 2, volunteer as crew on someone else's boat. Don't volunteer, okay? Figure out what you're doing, get the contract, get it sorted out. Maybe you're getting paid. Maybe you're paying for the privilege of doing crew. Both things work, depending on what's going on, okay? A lot of people pay their share of gas, fuel, docking fees to crew on a boat, and then they crew. And they basically get to go around and adventure in the Caribbean for free, minus the living costs, because they don't have to pay for the transportation. That's totally fine. Don't use the word volunteer. Actually, doing crew is not a problem at all. There's deliveries going on. It's Bahamas season. There's if you got your passport, just go, man. Just get on crewfinder.net or whatever it is and just go. Go, right? You have to excuse the background noise. We have a thing on for drying and stuff, chemicals, whatever. Deal with it. So crew, good. No worries. Do it. You could combine that with a course if you feel like you need a course for something. I mean, look, you have a trailer in a place in Florida where, again, I'm not going to, where there are sailing classes. He's close enough to sailing classes. So just go take the sailing classes that you feel you need to are next on your list or whatever. Go spend your $1,000 on ASA 103 or whatever it is, if that makes you happy, and stay in the trailer for free. Option 3, buy a boat temporarily and then sell it. Pros, he has free reign. He can easily acquire a boat in Florida in that price range. That's true. But he needs to do it much cheaper. We're going to talk about it. Maximize time on the water. Yeah. Cons. Unfamiliar with the Gulf. Okay, you're unfamiliar with everything outside of the one Great Lake you go on. That's whatever. You're going to learn. Have to try to sell the boat. I assume I can leave it to a broker and just go back to Ohio. And I'm like, no, that's not actually how it's going to work. Is finding a marina hard? Yeah, it's Florida in the winter. It's going to be ridiculously hard. It's also going to be very expensive. Is insurance hard to get for a boat in this price range quality? Well, he doesn't know what his price range or quality is yet. So the answer is kind of maybe. But what insurance do you need? You're getting a boat that's in the 4 figures. Okay? We're not going to do $10,000. Just trust me, you're not going to. If your budget is $10,000, you're not spending $10,000 on your purchase price of your boat. If you don't have a monthly income of some sort, just don't. You're going to be standing on a street corner trying to get donations to buy a tube of 5200. Don't, right? Okay, 5200 is the sealant if you're not into this stuff. All right, buy a boat temporarily and then sell it. Forget about the selling it part, or don't make such a big deal out of the selling it part. And this isn't a horrible idea. So the first thing is, Don't do it in Florida. Do it in North Carolina, do it in Virginia, do it in South Carolina, do it in Georgia, probably somewhere in North Carolina, maybe Norfolk area of Virginia, somewhere in there is probably going to be where you find it. But South Carolina is possible, whatever. Buy a $2,000 boat that you can sail to the Caribbean. You're not sailing to the Caribbean, but I'm just going to put it out there. You can find a $2,000 sailboat that will take you to the Caribbean. You can do it. Won't take you more than 2 weeks to find one, okay? It's not going to be the boat you want or whatever. Who cares? It's gonna float and it's gonna have sails. That being said, for what this guy wants to do, it's not a $2,000 sailboat to go to the Caribbean. For him, I'm gonna say you absolutely want a working motor, working engine of some sort. You want a small boat, something with a shallow draft and a relatively low mast, and something that you can go everywhere. You're going to find it a lot cheaper and a lot easier if you do it in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, or possibly Georgia. Register it there. Whatever, if you're in a backwoods marina in North Carolina and you buy the boat, you tell the people, hey, yeah, I want to keep the slip here. I'm going to go to Florida. I'll be back in a couple of months. How much is it? You're talking about places that have $200 a month slips for a 30-foot boat. $300 a month slips, not $900 a month slips for a 27-foot boat. That's Florida. Okay, so you can do that. Just pay for a couple months of the slip. And then if you get back up and you really need to sell it, at least you're not paying $1,000 a month for a slip for a sailboat that you've got for sale for $3,000, because you've got to figure that out when you're done. If you're done. That's kind of a thing there. So anyway, start there. The reason is because that gives you small boat, cheap boat, running outboard, running motor, if it's inboard. You're going to go down the ICW. You're going to learn the boat. You're going to be nice and slow, nice and protected. Everything's easy. Everything's chill. You're a couple weeks from getting into the Gulf. And that could be a month and a half. It could be 10 days. Like, it depends on how fast and how weird you are and how fast the boat goes. And take it easy. Learn the boat. Figure out your stuff. Chill. Go. And then turn around and head back, right? Go mess around in the Gulf, turn around, go back. You're going to have a cheap marina. You're going to have some sort of springtime turnaround. The boat will be sellable in the spring if you're outside of Florida in a kind of a way that it might not be in Florida. So sailing season, hurricane season, those things actually kind of matter. Insurance isn't that hard. You're going to be fine. You're going to be getting the worst, lowest end possible basic liability insurance. You're not going to do anything else, because why bother? The only thing you're going to spend money on is Boat US, Towboat US, because spend the money, get the tow. If you don't want to own the boat, do crew. You've got a place to stay. You've got a car. And that means that you're valuable crew in Florida for other reasons, right? Like if you crew up with some people and they're going to leave in a week and you're working with them and stuff, and you have a car and they're full-time, you have a car, all right? You're going to be getting paid to go get the groceries, all right? To like to a certain extent. And then you can park the car at your grandparents' place and in the trailer in Florida or whatever, and go. Shoop, off you go. Just make sure you have enough money for your plane ticket back, and try to keep your expenses down, because $10,000 is not a lot of money. Now, if you buy a $2,000, $3,000 boat in South Carolina and you motor and sail yourself down and get it through the OCW and OWW, Okeechobee Waterway, and get into the Gulf, and you're anchoring out and everything, your expenses are going to be low. You can do this. But if you're trying to dock at a marina, you don't have enough money. You just don't have enough money for the docks. Like $10,000 for 4 months is kind of, yeah, Florida, man. It's Florida. So that's about it. This is kind of an interesting post because what he wants is he wants to mess around on boats for the winter. And if you look at it that way, crew, Bahamas, totally easy. You know, he's got some experience, it's fine. But he also seems to want to mess around on his boat and do his own thing. And doing that for the winter isn't really easy. But, you know, Catalina 25 is trailerable. Park it at your grandparents' house when you're done. And you're good to go. Slips in rural South Carolina, North Carolina are not too expensive. You park it there when you're done. And come back down and do it again next year. You know, decide that this is your winter plan or whatever. That's my answer. That's all I got to say about this one. It's kind of an interesting post, and I think I'm going to keep doing these videos. I'm probably going to do this on the Substack also, because there's a lot of these posts that have some really interesting things to talk about. That's about it. Stay sideways.